get into tonight's presentation. So certainly some of our objectives this evening, you know, are to summarize the high school project. Scott's going to, you know, walk us down through both for your reference and the public's reference, as we have in the past, as well as we want to look at and review the bids that came in on November 9th, as well as talk about alternates. We also want to look at the timeline, explore our options. Obviously, when you have different options, it's positive and negative, so we'll look at those, as well as we're going to look at the budget, the financing options, you know, and then also kind of explain the importance of making decisions as we move forward. It certainly has been a difficult process. Certainly when we started 4 years ago, we never would have imagined the environment that we would be currently in. But as we move forward, you know, we'll kind of explain our thoughts there and conclude with a recommendation for you tonight. So with that, I'll turn it over to Scott.
Okay. All right, going to take just a couple minutes and kind of refresh everyone's memory. I think most of you are pretty familiar or very familiar with what we've been designing the last few years. Again, this is the existing main level. As you can see, the gymnasium on the right side that was in '87, that whole bar that comes across the auditorium. The parking lot that is out behind us, that's where we're putting the main bulk of an addition. That allows us to build a larger cafeteria, a larger band room, orchestra, choir is up there. We're able to move the library and make that at the center of a new commons area. Again, the commons area is a place where the students can gather. A lot of the activities can happen there, and we're getting the students away from the current entry and exit doors right now at the two lobbies where they're meeting. Again, we're doing this project, the classrooms. We end up with a few more classrooms and small group instruction rooms. The other key is that all of the key classrooms are larger. They are all the size of the 2003 edition. So there were about 13 rooms that were undersized currently. So now all of those main teaching classrooms are larger size, which also gives some flexibility. Again, there's a lot of items built in here with about safety and security, also accessibility. We're relocating an elevator to hit the basement level and get all 3 floors for access. The plan also has a second elevator closer to the very center common area that we'll be discussing. Mechanical systems, again, a lot. The chillers are, you know, need a lot of work. They're wearing out. Dehumidification was one of the first topics we talked about 3 or 4 years ago for this building. So the mechanical system, major changes there. I think we can go to the next plan.
Yeah, I'll interject there just for a second. The board may recall that the high school is our only building without dehumidification or without full dehumidification. So certainly when you're talking indoor air quality and mold, certainly dehumidification is an important thing to have in your buildings.
All right. On the second floor, you can again see what happens with the addition at that commons area. This one's been color coded. Again, we've been working with the principals, meeting basically every 2 weeks for the last few years. Make sure we have their input. The colors were indicating different programs, whether it's math, English, social studies, foreign language, science. So we're keeping track of where those are grouping. Again, part of the addition allows us to create some proximities that you don't have currently. We're able on the other level to move the graphic arts and art room together, that there's actually things they can team up and work on together. We'll go to the lower level. And then again on the lower level, you can see over in the shop area, we've probably talked about this before, the idea that we're opening up the metal shop and the power shop, and then even the engineering, the CAD area, putting glass in there so it feels more like a current industrial, you know, if you're going to a large company with production and industry, it's giving you that more better real world feel of what's going on. So there's a lot of details we can get into, just trying to hit the big picture, overall improving accessibility, security, safety. We'll touch on some more of those issues.
Certainly, if we would decide not to move forward, there are some projects that we are going to have to consider doing rather quickly, and we've been talking about the chillers, but that's one project that we would, if we would decide not to do the major project, that's one project we would need to consider moving ahead with.
Also, the site plan, again, is a little bit of a refresher. We put some color to this, seeing the current existing buildings in the red/pink, maybe it's burnt ochre, and then the addition is in a blue there. But the key, again, on the site plan was adding this new lane going out and really creating that as a bus loop at the top. So the buses can come in, loop around at the elementary school, then they end up on the proper side of the street for drop-off in the morning there and pulling back out. Again, that separates then the car traffic with students and parents coming in from the main entrance. That was one of the first interventions that we looked at site-wise, was to really kind of separate that bus and car traffic.
Yeah, and as we worked with Transportation Department and the all three buildings, this plan would improve the traffic on our campus.
As you can recognize in the plan, at the lower part of the site, we have from the summer project, we have that lower 94 space parking lot, and up behind the bleachers, athletic fields, we have that 50 space slot. Either complete or almost complete. There's some handrails and a couple of details yet. Again, I think you might remember this last month or when we presented this, of the elevation of what would be the new front of the building. Now this new front, what you're seeing is the words on the building there at the high school. That's really the face of the auditorium from the south side. Again, if you recall, we're going to demolish, when we're done, the cafeteria, the library, that area of the building turns into parking. So this is really the new facade of the building. With the 87 piece, and then coming out into the 1957 and 50 and 57 pieces. Our original design does have a carport drop-off out at this, what we're going to call the front entrance. Again, the main entrance is to the right that goes into the new administration area. The other entrance that you see there is into the auditorium. So again, for those auditorium visitors, that will be the main entrance. Again, during the day, the only door that you're going to be getting through from the public is one door at that main entrance that goes right into the office.
So for clarification, this is the facade of the building, the elevation of the building that you would see from Thistle's Church Road.
Yeah. Now, what we are showing was one of the alternates we talked about when we went out to bid is if we don't do the canopy. So that is simply showing if the canopy does not happen on the front, I think you still can see the two main entrances, etc. One of the items of note is with the columns and the brick piers that are part of that structure. We had discussed that as part of security, U.S. Homeland Security pieces of, again, trying to keep cars and other items from getting close to the building. We may have to look at some other options if we don't put the carport, if we don't afford to do the carport on this side. The next set of slides is kind of the back of the building, but this is now facing the stadium. So if you're at the stadium and you're looking across, again, I think you can recognize we've had this bus drop-off, from the original design has been on the back here. Of note is that it is five, I believe we counted 5 bus lengths that can drop off. We have, I think it's up to about 30 buses that are going, so it takes time for the 5 buses to get there, drop off, next 5 to move. Again, our whole idea on this, and you'll see a little detail later, is just keeping the students out of the weather. Obviously, right now, they're being dropped off on the opposite side of the road to begin with. Now that we are getting them on the correct side of the road, we could get them under cover, very quickly from the buses in those times of weather. Again, security items here, you can see the brick pilasters, and it's a little hard to see some of the benches and planters in there, but again, the idea here is just keeping other cars and things from trying to get up against the building. So we'll talk about a couple more items. We'll get into more details, but we did receive bids on November 9th. The first note is very positive. We had good participation. We had several GCs. We had 6 mechanical. We had 3 plumbing, 3 electric, that submitted bids. We had more like 6 looking at it throughout, but what we finally saw bids from, we had good participation during this time frame. We will admit, as we show the numbers here, the lowest cost number is over the budget we were planning. We were working with SiteLogic. The CM was doing estimates. Our history working with their team, they've always had conservative numbers. So really, this is the first time working with SiteLogic where the bid has gone over that number, but we are in some pretty unusual times. Do want to note that, again, throughout this process, we were looking at different alternates and trying to have ways to deal with the cost controls. Same thing as did value engineering before. Frankly, with the bidders that are involved, we think there's some value engineering after we award contracts. I think there may be some ways that a few of the contractors could see some cost savings. So we want to continue to be effective with the money. Behind the scenes, I don't want to bore you with all these pieces, but we do have all our ducks in a row as far as the Act 34. If you remember, I think it was March 12th or 16th. We had the Public Act 34 hearing where we presented the project to the public and had presented the costs at that time, and the board had voted on maximum numbers that would not be exceeded. The maximum building cost relates to new construction, and I can confirm that even with the bids that we received that were overbid, we still do meet those numbers. So the new construction piece still meets the numbers that the board was looking for. As far as the overall maximum project cost, we are going to be going over that maximum project number, but because we are discussing this number in public, that number can change as long as the board agrees this is the project you want to do. So we did also the calculations related to the maximum project expenditure, and one of these notes here maybe it isn't clear. We double checked the referendum, looking at the costs, and none of these costs trigger a referendum. So we do meet the Act 34 requirements, and we do meet the needs to not have a referendum on the project. So those are good things.
Very good.
All right, now to the project estimate and the bids. So the final kind of CD construction document estimate provided by the construction manager, the total project, all costs, was the $65,691,944. Noting that in that number, $55,009,425 is the building cost piece. That's the new construction, renovation, site cost. That is what we call the hard cost, the construction cost. We're going to keep referencing that $55 million with these other numbers because what we received on bid day was the hard cost for construction. So we're going to reference on the base bid, if we have a bunch of alternates that you see in front of you. If we took all the deduct alternates and we didn't take any of the add alternates to get to the lowest number for the project, that would be $57,803,800. So that's, I think it was at 2.8 over where the estimate was. What we're looking at here is, as we talked with the principals and the rest of the team, we believe that there's a kind of a recommended level. There's about 4 alternates that we think are critical to take. If the project's moving forward, there's probably 4 pieces that we really should make happen while we're doing this. The other note that we're making here then is that this option C here, where we're talking about 4 alternates, option D, which is really C with more alternates. We want to make sure everybody has a chance. There are some alternates that again, we want to make sure publicly you have a chance to look at and decide if there's something else. But right now, we're going to give you the recommendations that also come from the principal team and the design team.
Do you want to kind of, the difference between the construction cost, the other costs are soft costs, and you want to explain that just a little bit to everybody?
Right, soft costs. So out of that $65.7 million number, there's 2 things. There's soft costs. That's like the building permit fee. That's the architect's engineering fee. There's insurances, builder's risk.
Change order money.
Yeah, we have a contingency in there, so that if there are change orders, again, we're dealing with an existing renovation building, and there are usually surprises that come up, as well as we can document what's there. There are surprises. So it's all those other soft costs. Also in that 65.7 million number, we were including the other summer projects, the parking lots that are being done, the water and sewer that we did over the summer to make connections, the other electrical work that was done was really part of this project, but trying to get it done early so we can move quicker with this project. So we kept those costs in this overall project, but it's showing up outside of the bid. All right, so I mentioned that between the lowest number, the team is looking and has been recommending that there are 4 alternates out of the list of 15, or it might be 16 alternates that we bid. The first one that was highest on the principal's list was the second elevator at the Commons area for accessibility. We located the primary elevator, we needed to hit the lower level, but the lower level is at the far end of the building. So we tried to put it as far north on that end, but it's still further away from where a lot of the building is. So that is the first one that jumped out, that for accessibility, now's the time. That would be right connected to the cafeteria. This is a little trickier to come back in later and add. So this is the right time to do that. Classroom door security. You know, we've been talking throughout this project the importance of safety and security. This is relating to the door systems and different fobs and things like that are a little higher level of security between a lockdown and seeing who's going through doors. So it's a different system than just relying on a key. The auxiliary gym windows was something that came in later in the project when we realized when we were in the auxiliary gym and we were seeing holes in drywall. We were trying to figure out what was going on, why these baseballs were going through the wall, and recognized that in the original drawings there were windows that were in that auxiliary gym, which was the original high school gym at that point. So we know that one of the highest things on the students list when you talk to the students about the building was daylighting, getting more daylighting. Again, our classroom designs, all of our classrooms have windows, and again, we're opening up the windows in the existing building that are blocked. We're reopening those windows. So daylight was a huge item from the students. And again, as we look, the impression that creates in that auxiliary gym, if you've been in that space, if you can get natural daylight in there in the day, that's going to feel like a much different, more welcoming space. So I think that was a $42,000 number. In the big picture, I mean, it's all real money, but in the big picture, that one I know the principals thought was a good investment. The other item that we're on this list of 4 is the additional middle school parking lot. Again, as we pull out this parking lot that has 277 spaces, in the end, we're going to have more parking on the campus than we do today, but it's kind of moved around. So that is an acknowledgement that there'll be more parking closer to middle school and the athletics.
Yeah, let me clarify that one a little bit, because remember, we're going to relocate that back middle school drive, and we're going to take that right over top of the existing middle school parking lot. So if we don't put this one in, then we're not going to have a close proximity to that building. So that's why this one rose to the top. It's not really additional as much as helping with the fact that we're relocating that drive.
Are you going to go into the woods across from it or next to it?
You go back to that slide. It's right next to the end. So if you see the gym there, it's to the side. It's right to the right there. If you can see, does this have a laser?
Yeah, I can see it better on here. Yeah.
It's that little,
Yeah, I see this.
Oh boy.
I got it.
Wait, when that-
she got it.
To the woods
I got it. We're good.
near the road.
You got it?
She has it.
Yeah, I can see it on here better than
Okay.
up there. Okay, thank you.
Oh, no problem, Judy. So those are the 4, again, when we met with the principal team, we've been talking about this for a while with all the alternates that are there. We had met even a month, we've been discussing this for probably a couple months of, we don't know where the bids are going to be, let's prioritize, let's be prepared, what are the things that you really feel you need, and we're kind of setting what's kind of a recommendation of, to move forward, these are 4 that we really think make the project successful. The next slide is showing, again, there were 16. We're not going to go through all the different options, but these were some that we thought are at least worthy for discussion. If there was a fifth item that came on the list, and this was the item, was the bus drop-off on the back. If there were 5 items, that would be the fifth item. It was just, we kind of narrowed down to those 4, and this one was kind of on that edge, and that's why we want to put it out to everyone here. It comes with a price tag. You know, it is $448,000, but we draw in a section, and I think the bus has kind of disappeared here. What we're trying to show is that canopy, and we might even bring it down just a little bit once we get to the shop drawings, but we tried to put the bus in there. The canopy actually goes into the road. It goes above the bus about 3 feet. Again, what we're trying to do, and particularly when you see the bus there, is we're trying to create, keep the weather from getting into that zone. You do take the buses away, and if you have a driving rain, driving snow, driving rain, there's not much we can do, and that's the same with a lot of different canopies, unless they're incredibly low.
And I think the one thing we talked about, and I had some questions on this, so I think it's a point we should clarify a little bit is, when you go to the mall or you go somewhere and it's raining, what you do is you get out of your car really fast and you run as fast as you can or you have an umbrella. The one thing we want to try to make sure people understand is when we're talking about students and drop-off, we can't have them running and going as fast as they can. We have to make sure it's orderly, slowly, and like he said, 5 or 6 buses at a time. So I kind of want you to picture that slow process of making sure we're getting everyone off and then down underneath this canopy. So I think sometimes we can't quite picture it if we haven't been part of it. And then the other piece with this canopy is if we're going to have buses be late at the end of the day to grab students, generally we don't have that. But if it's going to happen, it happens in inclement weather. Because the roads, they're driving slower and they can't get here as quickly. So again, this canopy would provide that shelter as we're waiting for the buses to be able to pull up if they're behind because of those types of things.
Yeah, so that was a tough one not to be in that initial list, but again, we're here making recommendations and want to give you the options. That one is like 4.1 or something. It's close to that list, but we thought it's the first one on this list. The list here also is a couple more to talk about. The auditorium seating right now, as we redo the flooring in the auditorium, we're also creating that AV booth in back and some other things going on in the auditorium. This is to replace the seats that you have is another $146,000. Currently, due to the alternates, we would be putting the same seats back that you have. You would have the new flooring, but you'd have the same seating. This could be a project down the road too.
Yeah, those seats, if you're wondering how old are they, they're from 1987. So we've gotten our use out of them, and we'll get some more years if needed, but there's no shame in replacing them.
Trevor Carrington's back there saying he sat in them.
Oh, yeah, I did too.
So we're noting that one. That was kind of next coming up there. Again, as far as finishes, we had an option to put terrazzo in the lobbies. Again, when you saw the plan, so the lobby out at the gymnasium and that entrance, which then has the new entry to it, and then over at the auditorium. Both those areas have it's called a Fritz tile right now that we would take up, and we can go over that with VCT or LVT. This was going to the terrazzo, the epoxy terrazzo pour. If you're familiar with terrazzo, it lasts forever essentially. So you do have some floors that are terrazzo that we don't have to do anything with at this point. So, but it is a pricey item. So that's why it was one of the alternates here that listed on one of the options to discuss. New clocks, I think it's one here because it's not a huge price item, but this is in the new edition. We will have some new digital type clocks that are connected to the system. We're going to be putting all of those connections in the existing rooms, but this is leaving the existing clocks there and not putting in newer clocks into those existing rooms. The other two that were worth noting on the list are again at the very front, the car drop-off canopy. While again, that's great for car drop-off and those things, one of the benefits, like the bus drop-off, is really the security piece of having those columns and the brick at the bottom. So if you have someone trying to drive up to your building, they're not going to get very far. So the canopy on the front, I think, while it has great benefits as a drop-off area for the cars, etc., that security is a key feature. But if you're picking only one of those canopies, the bus really connects with what all the students and what's going on back there. The other one of note, again, because parking, once it's gone, it's gone. This was the lot that's up. If we go up the hill to the baseball field, right now there's no drive there, but if you go up the hill to the baseball field and little cemeteries and tennis courts to the other side, you get about 20 spaces up there. But again, it's another $94,000, so we didn't put that in the list of that's really a must, but it is, again, worth the discussion going forward. So again, those were some things we thought it was worth pointing out. There are some other alternates on here that, frankly, we're not recommending that need to be done at this time, because we're acknowledging we're over budget. So, we're trying to work through that this is a serious decision that's being made. The roof replacements are some things that could be capital improvements down the road. Those areas we're looking at were done in 2003, so the warranty is going to 23. So the thought was, well, by the time we finish the project, they're finished warranty, but they should still go another 5+ years. I mean, usually that warranty, you're getting more years out of that. So again, if everything came in under budget, those would have been some good things to do. But again, we're kind of putting out that there's 4 key alternates that we really think are vital to do the project. And there's another 6 that, feel free to discuss, and if any of those should be, added to the mix. Obviously, we can do the math.
I know we're throwing a lot at you here and a lot of information. We'll pause here for a second. Any questions? We have some more information to give you, but any questions to this point?
I have a couple. Could you go back to the slide that shows the elevation views?
Okay.
Just make sure I understand.
You want the
New front?
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. The top view there would be the car drop-off with the carport.
This is how the new
The
park.
bottom view without a carport.
This is the add.
Right, so
And
the,
that faces Bissell's Church Road.
correct.
Okay.
There still would be roof areas, it's a little hard to see, but right at the 2 entrances, there's still roofs coming out to the sidewalk, but right at the curving sidewalk, we would no longer have the main car drop-off.
Okay. All right, now go to the one that followed that. Now that's the side of the school facing the athletic field,
Correct.
the football field.
Right.
And that's the bus, we call it the bus
Bus drop-off.
drop-off, but is that also the bus pickup? I mean, is that where the buses come in the evening?
Only really in that weather situation. We go to the site plan.
Wrong way.
There we go. So when you look at that plan, as the buses come in and they do their loop, when they're coming back out by the middle school, you see the lot that's at the middle school. Now, it's hard to see the lines, but there's long angled lines at the middle school. So we're showing that the buses for the afternoon angle behind the middle school, as opposed to right now, they're angled out in front of the high school. So there were 2 things that happened was, I think it was something like maybe three quarters of the bus students are middle school. And now we're putting that area much closer to the middle school and younger students. They have less area to travel. And again, it's down the hill then from the high school where you'd have 25% of the students using buses going there. So we're setting it up so that the afternoon leaving the school is behind the middle school there.
Okay. In the morning for drop-off, middle school kids, do they get dropped off in front of the middle school still?
Yeah.
They don't have to.
Yes, they will go over to the middle school there, yes.
Yeah, so that'll continue, that the middle school students will be dropped off, even after construction, will be dropped off at the building and the high school as well.
Yeah, I can't pick out on there where the pickup in the evening is. I can't see any of those lines, but. Yeah, oh, okay, I see it here on, yep, never mind, I got it. Yep. Yep.
Those are where the bus dashes are.
Okay. Okay. And while you,
See that?
while you got that up there, can you point to, well, either which parking lots stay or which ones on there go? If we don't exercise the alternates.
Oh, okay, as far as the alternates, so there's one small parking lot to the right of the middle school gymnasium.
Okay,
So that's the one that we were discussing that might be part of the 4 alternates that's worth taking. The other one that we talked about, the baseball field, is going up the hill there.
That's that
That
one.
parking lot there would be the other alternate that we had, I think like number 6 on the other ones to consider.
but the bigger one behind the athletic fields will stay.
Yes,
That's
and
what we
that's-
built this summer,
That's just.
Oh, yeah, I guess
Yeah.
that's there now.
Yeah, it's there now.
along
It's here.
with the one down front.
Okay,
Yeah, good questions, Bruce.
that's about it.
Yeah, I had a couple. So on the D1 through 6 ideas, how difficult are they to add in at a later date?
That's a great question.
Oops, sorry.
So the bus drop-off canopy, while that's possible to do later, we're going to be digging up a lot of sidewalk and work. I mean, that one, it's going to cost more to do it later since there's going to be more to dig up. The auditorium seating, if we don't do this one, that could be something done as a maintenance plan later now, or a capital improvement. The one item we're getting benefit here is that the seats themselves are probably worth about 180, 190,000. Because they're doing work in there and moving the current chairs out, you're getting a benefit in this price of, once you take the existing chairs, if they know they don't have to store them, they disappear and they drop the new ones in. Right now, the plan is they have to store the existing chairs and then put them back in place. So again, if you do that one later, it will cost more, but it's really that cost of the chairs will be different. Terrazzo's a little tough. I mean, you can always do terrazzo later, but once you put in, at this point, a VCT floor, once you wax it, I mean, you're good for a long time with that floor. Clocks are very easy to add. That's an easy one. Car drop-off is kind of the same as the bus drop-off. We'd have to cut through the concrete, etc. Parking lot, that probably is not as hard to do later. We're gonna be grading things, so that one probably, the clocks and the baseball field parking lot are probably 2 of the easier to do later. Again, the auditorium seating we can do later, but that's gonna cost more, and the drop-offs will probably cost even more to do later.
And you had mentioned that the 2 bus drop-off canopies were, one of the primary functions as well would be security.
Right.
Are there mitigating things you could do that, if those aren't there, the security issue's still there, what else are we looking at, and would that add cost to the process, or?
Yeah, I think we'd end up trying to replace them with whether they're concrete planters or some other things, or other site items. I mean, what doesn't show in the plan too is there's a lot of landscaping. With the site development plan, we do have a lot of landscaping pieces too. So it's not like the building's going to be wide open accessible, but we wouldn't have the cost right now if we're going to add other larger concrete planters, et cetera, to create those buffers.
And one last question, the addition of any of these alternates, we're still okay with the Act 34? And
Yes. Yes, we had that discussion because I spent a lot of the weekend looking at those numbers, and when I saw the first round of numbers and we were good, and I realized there may be another 2 million to go, the item that our benefit was almost all the items that you're looking here are either site or part of the renovation cost. they aren't part of the new construction cost, which is what Act 34 in the referendum looked for. So when we looked at all the other alternates, we realized, yeah, the number goes up, but it's not in new construction, so we are good.
Thank you.
I just wanted to comment on the terrazzo flooring. The existing flooring in the high school outside of the cafeteria, wasn't that put down in the 50s when the original building was built?
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
So
There's-
that tells you what terrazzo flooring is.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
I
and
mean, that's
continued,
been there for 70 years.
yeah, continued to 58 edition when they put that on, that's terrazzo flooring. We've seen it, it lasts.
And we're not, I mean, it's a six-digit number, but I would have to say, I think Randy had looked, again, this is not only the auditorium that we're looking at doing, but it's in front of the gym and this new main lobby that we're creating. I think you got a price at one point about $80,000 just to do the auditorium.
Yeah, several
And
years
that's
ago.
really about a third of the project. So we do have a very good price for it. It's a larger number, but it is a very good price for the epoxy terrazzo.
And it's also, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's easier to keep clean.
It is, yep, and to maintain, it is.
Again, that's why we thought we wanted to put some of these on the list that are worth discussion.
On the car drop-off canopy, is there any reason that has to be as big as it is? Could it be cut in half? Concentrate one by the auditorium entrance and the other one by the school entrance, what the students would use to go in and out of the school?
Yeah, there's an opportunity to do that. We actually, it was larger to start, and we kind of kept cutting it back. But yeah, we could cut back on the left side of this. We may not need as much in the
Right.
middle. I mean, we could probably do about 50% of it and focus on those two entrances. Right now, we left it at length because it was kind of symmetric at that whole piece
Right.
of it, but
Right.
it's coming at a cost. So it's a great question. We could focus 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 pilasters and 5 or 6 on the other side.
Right.
We could probably cut the length in half. So that could be something we look at, for the project.
Yeah, I think some of the vision that was had was obviously, you have the main entrance, but then, you also have the auditorium and the play, musical, and when that entrance is kind of a focus, that canopy helps. But to Jim's point, we could shorten it up on both ends. And I think one of the things we discussed as a team as well, if we move forward with the contractors, we're going to continue to look at value engineering. So as we're talking with this canopy and even, the other canopy and any of these components, we can work with the contractor to see, is there, some economical ways, better ways that we can, achieve. Certainly we want to be careful that we don't lessen the scope. We still achieve what we want to achieve, but always looking for value engineering ideas.
Yeah, I like Jim's point, because if you look at the drawing, the bottom one with no canopy, you got 2 cars parked there. If it's bad weather, they can wait until they get to the canopy.
Right.
To let people out and still accomplish some of the security issues we mentioned earlier, right at the entrances.
Yeah, and it's a good point. We had some of those discussions early. How far do we narrow it down? One of the things we got to was when we started to have 20 to 30 alternates, we kind of said, well, let's try to narrow it down. But I think that's a great solution out front. We could narrow
Scott,
that down and solve a lot of
Do
things.
you know how many cars can fit there as it is in the picture? Like, is it rated for 20 cars or?
No, I don't think it'd be 20, but
Oh, it's just a number I threw out.
the pilot, those are 14 feet. We'll have to look at it, probably 12 to 15 cars,
Okay.
depending on the size of, if they're all Kevin's truck, maybe 9. If anybody has a smart car, then maybe we get 16s.
Right. Yeah, I didn't know if they had, different sizes.
Yeah.
And then I also have a question. On the middle school parking lot, the additional, is it truly 20 spaces or is it bigger? It's 20 spaces?
20 spaces, yeah.
And so then the other one is 40 spaces, right? The bigger one
No, the other one's 20 as well.
The baseball's also 20.
Yeah, and you'll see a cost difference. You wonder why is one 20 space more expensive? Some of that is the storm infiltration, is different for those two lots. So,
Put that picture back up.
what's that?
Put that picture back up.
Here's the site plan. And you gotta go up that hill. The
Okay,
difference is
so-
going up that hill and
All
stuff
right, so
too.
this one I counted 20, right, the little one.
Yep,
And then the bigger one, that's also 20?
Yes.
yeah.
So that's single, then that's not double.
Not the one above it.
Up top.
That's what they're talking about, out of the baseball
No,
field.
I'm talking about this one.
Where's your little
She's talking about the
arrow?
bus, the bus lanes.
Oh, those are buses.
Oh,
Those
oh,
are,
oh, oh.
yeah, those are buses.
Okay.
Those are big spaces for the buses.
Oh, yeah.
We couldn't have
There-
extra
there it is.
lines in there to like make it parking also for overflow parking?
I'm sorry?
I said could we put extra lines in there to make it overflow parking
Yeah,
for
Yeah,
I think
cars?
for your sports events, we can at least put a dash in the middle so you're getting 2 cars where every bus is.
Yeah,
Yeah, the trouble with during the day, is
you don't want
the-
people
the-
there.
the staff wouldn't be out of the way in time. But yes, no, one of the functions that we plan to do is that overflow, for especially sporting events and things.
Graduation.
Park cars.
Right, graduation, yeah.
Yeah, no, I tell you what, this certainly is going to help us with graduation.
Good questions.
Question. Does the canopies or the awnings, do they have lighting installed in them?
Yes.
So if we're not going forward with the canopies, will we have to get additional lighting to support that since we would be taking it away?
We will double check that. I mean, there's enough lighting by code from the parking area. We just, once we put that roof over it, we have lighting underneath. At one point, at the front canopy, we even were looking at maybe different color in the back of the lights, maybe having different colors. If during events you wanted, red for the canopies or something else, but that got value engineered out quickly to just be light or not light. But it just gives you an extra level of brightness that's there. We would double check the calculations. Everything has to meet code.
And there's what we call wall pack lighting as well. So on the building itself, on the walls, exterior wall, there would be some lighting on the walls as well. But certainly, I believe that the walkway would be better lit with the canopy.
Okay. My other question when it came to the canopy is, for the front entrance, is that going to be the main entrance that's used for theater, orchestra, band, when there's a concert, when everything's going in, versus how it's done right now and people are kind of coming in through the back?
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
the front's going to be the back, and the back's going to be the front. So the entrance that's on the left side there would be the entrance for the auditorium that's right there. The other one, large entrance, is kind of the main entrance, recognizing that during the day, students, that would also be the main entrance to the gymnasium. So when you see the site plan, when we do the demolition out front, that's why we have so many parking spaces in that area. That's going to help for those events. And that area also then flows into the South Elementary parking lot. I think we got 102 spots over there. So it flows together that we'll have, significant number. It's probably, I think it's more parking spaces with those two combined than what you have back here now.
Okay, that's right. It
But
helps
we are
me visualize
switching
a little bit when it comes to like who's coming in and out, and then that additional lighting
Yeah.
being provided by the awnings, like for safety, because a lot of those activities are happening in the evening.
Right.
And my last question, and this might seem like a silly question, but you said that the windows in the gymnasium were cut, they were closed off. Do we know why they were closed off? Just so we're not kind of, oh, let's open them up 3 months later, oh, we got to shut them up again. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to just, in many of the school buildings around the area in Northeast, were closed in. When you look at the facade, and not only in the 70s and for energy efficiency, but now the windows have become so much better energy efficient, so, it's not as negative to open windows back up for energy purposes, because of that daylight. So not only in the auxiliary gym, but you'll see the drive-it stucco above the small, what I'll call hopper windows around the building. There's actually old windows within that drive-it that were closed in, not sure, and maybe Jim knows which renovation they did that. You know, I would guess 87 or before they closed those in, but yeah, I think it's a great solution to get some daylight in.
Yeah.
I think it's a brilliant idea,
Yeah.
and it makes sense that we've just kind of evolved. We've got better quality items.
And within the plan, around the classrooms, we're opening up those other windows. It just so happened that as part of the value engineering, we said, okay, aux gym, you know, that'll be an alternate, you know, and then we got the price and talked through it and said, well, it'd be nice to do it, you know.
It seems like a reasonable price too for that.
Yeah, a lot of the windows in the 50s or so were steel, and then it was really non-insulated glass. Now, when they closed those in and the windows that got left in the classrooms, they switched those the low windows out, and they just covered up the other steel windows. A real quick side note, we had a project years ago where we had an elementary school that had steel frame windows in it that we wanted to change out for energy, obviously the energy impact. It went to the Pennsylvania Historic Museum Commission, and their recommendation was, you need to install the windows like they were originally installed. And we said, well, but they're not energy efficient. We want to have energy efficiency. And when we heard that, well, this is a recommendation, we said, well, it's a recommendation. If we don't do it, what happens? Nothing. Okay, thank you for your recommendation. But the whole school district was trying to improve the energy efficiency of those windows, and it was just ironic that the commission was saying, you got to put the inefficient windows back in.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. You didn't pay for that advice, did you?
Well, thank you, guys.
Sure.
I'm just thinking of bad weather with the canopy, like if it was raining and then it got icy, our custodians are going to be out there salting like this would probably cut down on the cost of salt, cut down on the custodians' time cleaning off the sidewalks. I'm assuming they clean off the sidewalks.
They do, yeah, our
Yeah.
maintenance staff. And
So I mean, in a
custodians.
long run, it could save money and a little bit of, I mean, it's a very minor money, but it's-
Yeah, I mean, some money, but also just quality of keeping the sidewalks clean.
Right.
Certainly, you know, where we have canopies at our other buildings.
I was gonna say at Shrewsbury
does help.
Elementary, I know the kids get off the bus and
does help,
it's,
you know.
it's really nice because it's not wet,
But-
icy.
It's all at a cost as well. you
Obviously,
know,
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, yep.
Well, let's pick, okay, the auditorium seating. Anything special about the new seats? Do they recline? Do they have a folding?
You got your name on, Judy.
He did, yeah.
Are they the same things we have now?
They're an updated version of what's there. There's no cup holders or anything else. It's really the same upholstery and suspension. Probably a little more strength in the seating, just up to, current standards of some things, but
Do you know if
no
they're
extra, no frills with it.
Do you know how many?
How many? It's about, reusing versus new was a little different layouts, about 990. I could be off by 8 this way or that.
That's pretty
depending
good,
on the
honey.
seat.
I was gonna say approximately 1,000.
I was going to say, could you be more specific?
Well,
990 is a good number.
992 might be the number I'm thinking of, but
All right, thanks, hon.
All right, anything else? And we'll keep on.
How many
Well-
clocks is it, do you know?
How many what?
Clocks.
Oh, you got me there, Judy. I'll get you an answer, though. All right. So, as we had talked, as we look at these alternates and just wrestling with what we need to do, a lot of good benefits with the canopies and these other alternates, but, we also balance that with, trying to stay as close to budget as we can, so it's a balance. It's a tough decision before us. One of the things, some of these alternates, if we don't do them, we'll need to build those into our capital improvement plan. So if we don't do the auditorium seats with this project, at some point fairly soon, we'll need to do those seats. If we don't do the roofs, with this plan, at some point, we'll have to build those roofs in, because, our big goal with the major project was 20-plus years without significant renovation, and we'll try to keep to that as much as we can. But certainly, the capital improvement plan is, an option for us to build into some of these projects. So certainly, as we wrestled with this decisions and putting a recommendation together for you, it wasn't in isolation. We certainly spoke, heavily with our construction manager, with our architect, with our legal counsel, bond counsel, got the contractors' opinions. Obviously, they want to do the work, but just talking with them on, okay, can you get these supplies? What are you seeing in the market? How are we going to, have these materials in time so that our project doesn't come to a screeching halt? So we talked to all these professionals to gather, our opinion. So I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Green to kind of walk through financing the project and these different options that we talked about. How would we finance it if we would decide to move forward?
So just want to start first by saying that, huge thank you to our consultants and Randy. I want to stress, it looks like we're kind of coming forward and saying, we're over budget, but we need to keep plowing through. I want everybody to understand, we kind of agonized on this. This is a big deal. Coming forth over budget, you guys know, and Jim was picking on me early, he said, I know a lot of really conservative people, but you probably take the cake for that. I'm not comfortable when we have to go over budget, but I'm going to walk you through a little bit in the next couple slides on why I am comfortable with recommending that we move forward. I'm okay if we don't, but I am comfortable recommending that because we've done a long-term financial plan, and by doing that and reflecting back on that and working through things with that, I think we're in the best place we can possibly be in this environment. So let me kind of talk through that a little bit on what I mean. So we've been phasing millage in since 2019. So we have a $0.5 mil already in place. We've also looked at this as a huge long-term plan, not just the high school in isolation. And so one of the things as we look through this that I want to emphasize, if the board chooses to move forward with this and we're over budget, it's not going to take from the other projects. We're going to have to understand that it's in addition, because what we don't want to do and we don't want to get ourselves into is robbing from the next project in order to do that. And as a district, some districts aren't able to do that because they're at their bond limit and they can't borrow any. We are not, and that's not an issue for us, but I just want to kind of make sure everybody understands that this is not lowering the scope of other projects going forward. So as we started this about 4 years ago, our projections were that we would need about 2.79 mils in order to do this building plan. We got that down to 2.4 mils at the last board meeting. And a couple reasons for that. Long-term planning, but also we are in a phenomenal environment for borrowing. And so if you look at that's a huge reduction in millage during that time. And so one of the things I think we do have to recognize, as much as it pains me to ever be over budget, we're over budget, but we're in a phenomenal borrowing environment. You're not going to hit it where you get both pieces necessarily perfect. So that's where I think holding on and saying we're never going to be over budget may not be the way we want to go, even though that is a critical piece. I mean, we can't take that lightly. So hopefully I explained that properly, but for me, it took a lot to wrap my head around that because I'm not comfortable with that piece, but I'm comfortable that overall long-term is in the best interest of the district. And I could wrap my head around that, so I do feel comfortable with it. So the last piece here, we're going to need approximately 0.27 of a mil to 0.30 of a mil over this long-term plan that we put together. So it's really not a huge difference per year in millage. It's not a colossal amount. We'll kind of go to the next couple slides to kind of say what that means to our taxpayers, because any decision we make, we have to understand what that means. So, Randy, you want to? Okay, that's a little smaller than I thought it was going to end up being. I'm going to have to cheat. So what this slide shows is, I got to think, thank you. What this slide shows is what Scott and Randy were explaining at the beginning. I want to be clear as we're going through these alternates and numbers, the difference between the construction costs and the overall plan costs, because I don't want anyone, board member or public or anyone, to walk away and say, well, you said it was 57 million, but it's now you're saying it's 68 million. So I want to make sure everybody understands there's the soft costs and the project, part of this project we've already done. So that's what this slide represents. And what we're showing here is that September estimate versus the base bid, the very bottom dollar. Then the next item is that base bid with the 4 select alternates that Scott was talking about, and the base bid with 5 select alternates, which includes that first bus canopy that we're saying is our highest priority if we add anything else. So if you go to the next slide, this is where I think, again, as we wrap our arms around it, if we go with that base bid with the 4 select alternates, that's an additional $3.4 million. Again, big number, we're recognizing that. The millage impact for that is 0.14 mils. And that is going to be phased over a 7-year period. So it wouldn't be like in 1 year we'd have to put in an additional 0.14 mils. It would be phased in. And what that means to the median homeowner in Southern York. So again, if we go back to our math classes, median means middle. So our middle homeowner in Southern is $25. And so again, once it's all phased in, so half of the homeowners would pay less, half would pay more because we're in the middle. But that's really what the impact is. And I think that's the piece we've got to wrap our arms around. If we were to do, again, our financial advisors ran this for us, if we were to do absolutely everything that was bid, and we're not even recommending that, so the upper end of that would be $38 to that median homeowner. So again, I think that's where our range is, and understand that bottom one's far away. So it's not like each of these is an increment in between. It might be, instead of $25, it's $27 or $30. And again, these are all conservative estimates, because when they go out for the bonds, they make sure that they're going to do better than that. Kind of like the bids, but a little bit different in that we're not going to go for sale if we can't hit the mark on the bond side. So what we wanted to kind of illustrate here is just what the impact to people would be versus just saying, okay, we got to move forward with this. Again, I can't stress enough that one of the 2 pieces of this equation is the financing side. So it's not just the actual bids that come in. The financing side is very critical to it. So,
Sue,
yeah.
before you go on, the 0.14 mils at one end to the 0.25, the $25 to the $38.
Mm-hmm.
You said that's over time. Remind me again, what time frame are we looking at for that?
That's about 7 years. So again, when I'm looking at any of this from a financial standpoint, I'm looking at our estimates for all 4 projects, not just the high school, because what we never want to get into is we do the high school, but then we don't have anything, or we're not in place to do the next 3 buildings, Shrewsbury Middle School and Southern Elementary School. So it's a great question, but that phase-in would occur over like the next 7 years. So I think it's this year to 2029 is like the long-term plan.
So the total after 7 years would be 25 or 38?
Additional,
Additional.
above what our current plan is.
Right.
Yes. Yep, just want to make sure I was clear with that.
Again, that's, just to make clear, that's only if we select all the alternatives we're
Right.
talking about, I think focusing on,
Right.
yeah.
Yep.
but it's a few dollars per year as we go along.
Right. But then once it's all phased, and again, I want to be clear, once it's all phased in, until those bonds are paid off, it would be,
Right.
annually. It wouldn't, it wouldn't be a one-year thing. So I want to be clear about that too. So any other questions on the financing piece before we kind of go over pros and cons? Good?
All right, so we put, the positive, negatives to accepting bids. Certainly when you look at that, we've been talking, one of the big positives is the financing cost. Certainly negatives, as you look at supply chain and labor shortage, are certainly one of the negatives. One of the things we're wrestling with is, we don't know when we would be getting out of the supply chain issues and labor shortages, so, we're hearing it's going to be years until things get back to normal. We also looked at, the positives and negatives of rejecting the bids. Positive is, potentially waiting for a better environment, but we just don't know. You don't know if that better environment's going to come, and certainly one of the big negatives is our facilities are aging, and every year we continue to wait. It's not only the high school, but the other buildings in line, are aging, so that maintenance cost naturally is going to increase, if we don't renovate our buildings.
Let me just want to add, just based upon one of the comments on the board members made about the canopy and icy conditions and our custodians, putting salt down. One of the things with this project is dehumidification, and while there's concern with it, what we've been doing for the last 3 to 4 years is we have about 70 to 80 dehumidifiers, single units, that our folks from March until October, 7 days a week, empty manually, to get the water out of the building. So, that is a big labor-intensive deal for folks. So, but it is critical in the school environment that we make sure that we have those. I mean, we would have environmental issues if we did not. So I just wanted to point that out since that comment was brought up about the sidewalk. All those things kind of go on behind the scenes, and I just think it's important people understand some of those.
Yeah, I appreciate, and certainly if the custodians aren't watching, I'll share your comments with them because, they'll certainly be thankful that, they're being thought about.
I might just add 2 notes on the last slide. There are 2 items that you probably had a chance to look at there. But in the end, the 4 low bidders that we got, and the public tabs are, available. Low Bar Inc. Would be the general contractor with the lowest number. Midline Mechanical was the lowest mechanical. J.R. Reynolds was the plumbing, and Farfield was the electrical. We did have a chance to talk to all of them. I think one thing to recognize was clearly Low Bar and Midline are the 2 biggest contracts, and frankly, in the public bid environment, they are 2 of the best. So that's one of the advantages, and talking to all the contractors, they were excited about the team, that you've got a real good team of contractors, and the pros, we got them. The con is you rebid, you can't guarantee what you're getting again in a rebid. But I thought it was worth just saying, I think we have a good set of contractors. Besides the competition, is a good set of contractors. And the other item that we were struggling with from day one with this cost is the supply chain issues that, they're out there. It's real. You're seeing it in everything. The benefit on the project here too, in talking with the contractors, we've built in some time that if we can get, if the project does move forward and there's contracts in early December, they can get a lot of their materials late spring and summer so that in the fall we can get the addition under roof. There was a lot of questions with Low Bar of just understanding how can we get weathered in before the winter. We're concerned about roof insulation, and they feel very strong they can get the insulation by this summer. The other item was steel, bar joists, etc. In the plans, we gave an alternate. If you don't want to use steel joist for framing and you use regular flange steel, you're welcome to do that, recognizing flange may cost you a little bit more, but it's a time issue. When we spoke with Low Bar, how are you going to get weathered in for next year? And they said, well, we'll be up there with the steel in October, November, because we're using the flange. We're not going to risk it with the steel joist. So that gave a comfort level that they're recognizing, they're understanding. They actually said we got a lot of details of how many joist manufacturers are out there and who's bidding, who Amazon's using, that no one else is using. So I think behind the scenes, we tried to do a lot of due diligence. We know they want to do the work, but we want to hear, can you really get it done? That was our early concern, and I think it was just a note that, not that there won't be any issues, but they're really trying to be prepared, and we've built in time that they get their submittals in early, and let's get approval well before you're on site. So I think the team's trying to make this project work.
Okay, so our next steps, if the board chooses to accept bids, we would have the sale of bonds November, December, with the goal to close by December 31st, because that would allow us to do a bank qualified financing, which gives the district lower interest rates. So we're really trying to make that work. We'll also have on the board agenda for the building and zoning permits for Shrewsbury Township to keep us moving. The approval of the investment of the proceeds. So we would take the money from the bond issue, put it into investments, allowable investments, of course, and that we need to be able to do arbitrage calculations for that to meet compliance for bond issues. The fifth item would be to approve builder's risk. So we have been working to work through that process. Because this is what we've been dealing with lately. There's some snags there, but we have been working through that, and we think we have a good plan for builder's risk. And then we also need a PennDOT letter of credit, which is on the board agenda for tomorrow evening if board's bids are approved. In my 20 years, we've never been asked for this, but we actually need a letter of credit for PennDOT in order to move forward with the permit.
And it wasn't on their original list of requests. It was, you have your approval, but now we need a letter.
Yeah.
For $56,000, so go figure. But we're working through that also.
I've never heard a municipal government being required to post a letter of credit at PennDOT. Never. In 40 years.
It's a crazy world.
It is very crazy. So we're working with the bank on that, and basically we'll place the money in a separate account so they can give us the line of credit, and then we'll move forward with that. But it's just one more step in the process. And then we would come back to the board if things are approved at the December 2nd meeting for construction testing to move forward with the testing plans for the project. And that also, the construction testing could also be done in January, but we're going to take a look at that.
Are there any questions from the board? Any other questions?
Again, the last slide we're showing here, again, is, you saw the list of all the people with the opinions, that moving forward, fully recognizing that it was over the budget, a recommendation about the base bid, and minimally, hopefully, those 4 selected alternates. But again, it's your decision of what alternates to use or not, whether you want to add any other alternate like the bus drop-off or the terrazzo or something. Again, that's fully in your hands. We want to provide information to help you make a decision.
And so a point for logistics, so everybody understands, what we would need to understand to have this for the board agenda tomorrow night, we actually have to approve the bids. So we made this look a little more simple than it is, but for each of the alternates, there may be multiple contractors involved. So like for the bus canopy, it would be that we would have to accept the alternate from different contractors, and we'd have to have that in place so we can kind of make sure we're approving the correct thing. So does that make sense? Like, it's going to be a little difficult to do it, like, at the last second. So if we can have some direction this evening so we can plan all that out, that would be great, because it's not as simple as accept the bus canopy. We'd have to understand which contractors that involved and make sure that we're approving or rejecting certain things the correct way. Did I go
Yep.
over that correctly?
Yep, so for the bus canopy, as an example, the general contractor and the electrician, are involved there.
And the other item that makes it a little more confusing, we try to simplify the list that's in front of you. Some are deducts and some are adds. There were some things like the elevator that was very important, and you get your best price if it's in the base bid. So we made that a deduct instead of an add. So if they were all adds, this would be a little simpler too, but because if you want the elevator, you don't take the deduct. So that's why there's plus, we have them laid out, depending what decisions you make, well, you take these 12 in order to get this result. So we're here to make it happen, whatever's best for you.
But what are we allowed to tell you tonight? We can't make a motion.
Can't make a motion, but you can definitely do discussion and talk about what people are thinking so that we can proceed with it. Again, nothing you do, let me be clear too, nothing you do here this evening is binding in any
Right.
way. It's just giving us direction so that we can put the motion properly on the agenda for tomorrow. We can, and again, Jim, we can tweak it tomorrow, but I guess I'm just pointing out, we made it look pretty simple here, but it's a little more complicated than that.
Let me offer a suggestion based on the questions. Let's consider the base bid, which is the $58,440,500,000, plus the 4 option C alternatives. Then, in addition to the 4 C alternatives, would be D1, the bus drop-off canopy, D2, new auditorium seating, D3, the terrazzo in the lobbies, D4, the clocks, and D5, the car drop-off canopy. But look at a reduced canopy.
And what we can do there is we would have to approve the full canopy and then come back.
You have
with
to do it,
change order.
right,
Yeah.
understand it.
No, that's a good way, Jim.
But comments, for or against?
I like the idea of making it smaller to save money. Now, for the safety sake, would you just be putting in like the cement planters that you were talking about? as
Yeah, we
far
could
as, like,
build in,
the
and
front?
knowing that we have these columns of certain patterns, we could do some nice things to kind of replace where the columns were. Yeah, we could include that in the scheme that we designed, because we'd have a bigger design pool of money, shrink it, and get the pieces in there.
And then this is not about the canopy, but can you just explain a little more about the wireless access control for the classroom door security and just like the big advantages of it? As
Yeah,
far as like, and I know it's going up from just like your basic locks, but I just kind of want to know more about like, what does that wireless access control really mean?
Right. Let me ask, maybe you want to comment what Dover, it kind of relates to what we've seen in other buildings with
Yeah, some of the
Yeah.
wireless access control, so you have access control, much like we do with our exterior doors currently, but also there's ability to lock down those doors,
All at once?
Centralized-
Like all at
centralized
once?
lock,
You can
yeah.
just,
right.
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
That's all I really wondered. Thank you.
Okay. Good question, John.
As well as if you lose a key, it's a lot easier.
See, John's shaking his head, he's in agreement with what I outlined.
Yeah, me too, that's another 5, right? Yeah, all that up.
Yes, it's another 5.
Right,
The only thing I left out was the baseball field,
Right.
because that
It's 20
that can be
spaces.
done
Right,
anytime.
absolutely, agreed,
Why the clocks?
agreed.
Why did you include the clocks in that? That
Just
seems like
eight-
something that's easy enough to leave off for now.
Because if they do it now,
Mm.
it's going to be cheaper to do it. And then all the clocks will be on the same circuit, same control. I think they want clocks in each room. I mean, I can still remember sitting in a classroom watching the clock. And if you don't have that to watch, what are you going to do?
Look at cell phones.
I was kind of with Deb on, that. I mean, is there more to the scope of the clocks than just buying a clock and mounting it on the wall?
It's a centralized system, so,
So it's the whole
It's the whole system.
yeah, and what we did is, for that alternate was the ones in the existing. So we said, okay, we'll keep the ones in the existing building and tie them together with the new addition. But if we would take this alternate, the clocks in the existing building, so
Here,
these clocks and any parts of the building that would stay, those would get replaced. You know, so,
But
They'd all be on the
is there
same
some
system.
hardware and wiring other than hardware like what's hanging up there on the wall? When
It's
we
the-
say new clocks,
yeah, it would be a new clock and tied into to that system.
it's wired.
That's the wiring, I think.
You have to
Well-
physically wire,
but
somehow
but you're gonna have,
connect to
so
the new system.
if we don't take this, maybe that's what I'm not understanding. If we don't take this option, we don't get any clocks.
In the existing,
You'll
it'd be the same
keep the
clock.
existing clocks and we'll tie that into the
But what about the new rooms?
new rooms
New clocks.
would get their new clock.
They're
Yeah,
already in the
we'd-
base bid.
We'd have to put the clocks in the new parts of the building would get new clocks.
Right.
You know, otherwise Jim wouldn't be able to watch the clock when he's sitting in the classroom.
Well, I mean, it's not a lot of money. I'm certainly not gonna go to war over it, but it seems strange to use borrowed money for something you could go out and buy a couple of every year and put into place.
Yeah, we can do that, you know. We
That's what I'm
certainly
trying to
have
get,
experience some-
understand if there's more to the scope than just going and buying a clock and mounting it on the wall.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, because it has to tie into that system.
Right, but you're gonna put clocks in anyway, right? I don't know.
Or even that amount, one of the things that struck me is that there might be someone willing to donate, you know, a class or a group or somebody that might come along and say, you know, that's a project we can take on for the school. I'm like you, Bruce, you know, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a huge number, but at the same time, trying to be
At the
careful.
same time, we're the ones that have to explain it to somebody.
Right, that why
I
we're,
don't know that I'm in
yeah.
a position to explain the rationale for it.
Plus, I think everybody looks at their phone now to
Yeah.
check the time.
What's your pleasure? New,
I would be fine without the clocks, I
Without the
think.
clocks.
Yeah.
without?
Yeah.
And you two,
I'd even be fine without the auditorium seating as well.
I was thinking that too.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that one.
I guess we'd have to see what it looks like. It's been so long since we've been to a play.
That would about do it for the auditorium then, wouldn't it, for a while?
I'm sorry?
Wouldn't that about do it for the auditorium? We put new seats in, as far as renovations go?
Yeah, certainly that's one of the things we did not do, you know, in 2003.
Right. Right. So if we did that, then we basically wouldn't have to do anything for quite a while, right?
But on the other hand, if we don't do it with this project, it's still in the capital plan and it's gonna get done
Right, that's true.
anyway at some point. before too many years pass. That, I'm looking for, see if
Yes,
Sue's
there's an
cringing when I say that.
affirmative, yes. Well, and let me just throw out, let me throw out another piece, because, again, we try to be concise, there's roof sections that were alternates, and the estimated useful life is an additional 8 years. And so, again, as we looked at that, 8 years is a chunk of time for a roof, so they would be in the capital plan then as we get to the point where they need to be replaced. Now, that's an estimate, as we know. Randy spoke to us about maybe 2-3 years ago about us replacing a 1950-something roof. So, again, those are estimates, I think 8 being the minimum. But again, do we replace something that has, 8 to 10 years left in it? That's why we didn't bring that one forth to higher, because that's a chunk of time.
How many of the auditorium seats are broken? Like, are there a lot that are broken, or are they all pretty usable? Because I don't see any blocked off when I go in there.
Yeah, I mean, they're usable, we maintain, we have some spares, actually, to create accessibility. Some seats were removed, so we actually have some of those in storage.
And would the new ones have any different appearance other than the wooden seats now? Or would it be a similar look?
As far as style, it would be very similar, but we're going to be looking at probably different color. Right now, it's a blue and a purple lavender that's there. On the walls are those same colors and up front. In our design scheme, we were kind of pulling those colors out of the walls. Not that it's going to clash with the seats, but we were doing a little more neutrals, and then the seats, again, could come back in and be a little more neutral, that your focus is really what's happening on the stage and not the color of the seats. So style similar, probably a color difference is the key.
And I think one of the other things to point out, we're looking to do that floor underneath. Currently, it's a vinyl composite tile, which needs, for a common word, waxed. Well, if you ever try to wax underneath a auditorium seat, it's not real easy to do. So back to another nice thing for the custodian,
Right.
is not have vinyl composite tile underneath a seat.
I'm also thinking of, like, if we're putting floor in there and we're putting our old seats back, and then we decide we're going to get new seats, then we're filling in those holes from the old seats, or we're, like, ruining the floor, basically, by putting our old seats in thoughts of we're going to put new seats in later.
Yeah,
Like, why not just put the new seats in, and we're going to get the...
Yeah, I didn't understand that we'd be taking the old seats out no matter what we did.
Yeah, the old seats are coming out.
Yeah,
They'd have to.
Does
be
everybody
stored.
understand that?
I didn't understand.
I
They're
got that.
taking the
I
old
got
seats
that,
and
Yeah,
getting
in
floor.
order to do the flooring,
Yeah.
so one item that we did talk about was if you don't do the new seats, maybe we don't tackle the flooring underneath the
Right.
chairs.
This time.
We could have a credit back
We'd
to
have to
not
work
do
with the
that.
contractor for value engineering. So that's a potential.
So pair them together.
Right.
That makes sense.
And then how long would that be down the road? I would just like to see the whole auditorium done for a change. We're piecing it out every 3-4 years. So do we have any idea when that would happen?
Certainly, it wouldn't be over, most likely, the next 3 years if we go ahead with this project, it would be after that. So
Right,
we're
okay.
looking, sometime after that.
Okay.
And as you know, Judy, then we would have to prioritize, because it's.
Absolutely.
And that's what we can't quite answer right now, is
No, it is tough.
priority-wise,
Because that was one of the
where
things that
would we
always
be?
gets done last,
Yeah.
right?
Okay, let me go around the table. Who in favor of keeping the existing seating, or do you want the new?
I can go either way.
I feel like I can go either way too. I mean, I like the fact that the flooring would be put in, and especially like for the custodians, it's going to be a lot easier. And the idea of, well, why would we put the chairs back in at that point? But, every dollar savings is appreciated too. So I could go either way.
Bruce?
I'm in favor of doing it because it's one less disruption down the road. We're going to be disrupting everything, might as well take the hit now rather than 4 or 5 years from now.
I'm in favor of doing it. I would also, we can finish going around the table, but I want to ask questions about the baseball parking lot.
Okay. I'm in favor of the new seating.
I'm in favor of the new seating.
Absolutely.
I am, as long as it's a package deal. If we're doing floors, we get new seats. If we're not doing floors, we're not
Well, that-
getting new
That's
seats.
Yeah.
And I could go either way.
Let's leave it in.
Yep.
Now that, the parking lot by the baseball field is apparently now the only item that's on that list of, wish list, I guess, that we were looking at moving forward. As I look at it, I see 20 spots, but I also see a section in the front there. Is that, what is that? As you go up the lane,
Yeah, as you go up the lane there, I think there's a couple ADA spots right there. And then you get into the other bulk. I think the total with the ADA spots may be 20, but I'd have to zoom in there again and double check.
And
Those
just
were like
the-
ADA and drop off. We were creating like a little gate right at the sidewalk that's there. And again, it may not jump out, I think we talked about a long time ago, but the pathway that goes back to the track at the far end, we're widening that sidewalk. Right now, it's very narrow, and if you're trying to get back there, particularly, if there would be ambulance, et cetera, even the four-wheeler, it just barely fits on there. So that path is going to be much clearer going back. So we have a gate out there to try and keep cars from using it normally, but it became a potential unloading spot too for in front of the building there.
and that was, I guess, part of my question too, to access to the fields up there, like the baseball field, for things like an ambulance or whatever. Is this lot more than just, hey, it's an extra 20 spots we can put in anytime?
Yeah,
Again, because
sure.
my thought is, parking is primo, and at 94,000 now, if we say, oh, a couple of years from now we can do it, it's going to be so much more. And I just don't understand why that parking lot was just kind of an afterthought tonight seemingly, and it seems to me like it's,
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was definitely, it wasn't an afterthought, but as we looked at alternates, it was something that, okay, can we function without it? Yes. Does it have some valuable uses? Yes, especially stadium and, staging for ambulances and getting them in, it definitely has some advantages or some positives to do, as well as just proximity for parking at our events. Certainly you wouldn't want to park there during a baseball game. You wouldn't want to be during a baseball game, but other events, yes.
One note too, so we're on the same page, is because we put the lot of 50 back there that connects to that sidewalk that we're going to widen, that does give us another ambulance spot
Right.
if this didn't happen. So
Right.
overall, it was part of the design, we were hoping to do it, but when we saw the bids come in, it kind of dropped down. That could it be done later was a question, but later it costs more, so.
And we still have the parking beside the field hockey field.
Yes.
That's still there. I'm just thinking like the elderly, like, obviously I'm a cross-country track mom, but I'm thinking of like my mom walking up to the track field. She doesn't want to park in the front of the school and walk all the way up. She's already, like, this is far enough, like up a hill. But I'm just thinking of yeah. Like,
Yeah,
Hopefully
certainly
those
the-
50 in back will be a good
part
start.
That's still
there,
parking,
that's still-
okay.
Yeah.
So is
I
this-
wasn't sure, I just want to
But
make sure.
she could then, she
Yeah.
could park up here.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, save her a spot.
Yeah.
So I think that's important because many of you might not have had a chance to see the parking that was just put in back there as part of the summer project. Because I think that's also a positive in getting folks a lot closer to those areas back in there.
Is there anyone else that would like to see the baseball parking put in the project now?
Not me, right
But
now.
can I make a comment? The parking lot in the front is amazing. It's absolutely beautiful. The landscaping that was done there is just phenomenal. my expectation was like, you guys have like surpassed my expectation when I go down and look at it. It is really nice, and I was worried about like water runnage and how it was gonna like, what that was gonna look like. Yeah, you guys blew me away with that, so thank you. That was really great.
But you are saying that the parking lot for the baseball field would make it easier as far as ambulances and for safety's sake? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, that was its original intention, easier, quicker access into those areas, but by default too, we do have another option we created. So it was a good solution, got you more parking, et cetera, but as we started looking, what can we scale back and try and get on budget is where that ended up as an alternate.
Does it make it any easier for the marching band as far as all of their equipment, or is that something just completely separate?
Well, there's a sidewalk that's next to it that my understanding is, I think we still have the grading and the sidewalk is happening there, so that should help. But it is sidewalk and not an entire width of road
Okay.
either, so.
Right.
Yeah.
I like the idea of the baseball field parking lot.
Bruce?
I like the idea, but I don't like spending the money for it.
It appears that the parking lot, or the baseball parking lot is going to be out of pocket. Not going to make it.
We're gonna make the cut.
Sorry about that. Now, is there any other change to the bid and alternates?
So did we nix the clocks?
Yes,
Okay, yes, just so, because I
Yeah,
wasn't
like
sure on that, are the clocks?
the clock's been nixed.
Okay.
The kitty cat clock with the tail.
Then Bruce doesn't have to explain it.
Yeah, thank you.
So we're looking at D1, D2, D3, and D5, plus the 4 and C.
Right.
And reduce canopies.
Right.
Well, that comes about as a change order.
Yeah, so let's make sure everybody understands that. So because this is public bid in a certain way, we have to either accept or reject each of these as it's written completely the way it is now. And then at that point, then we would be able to value engineer with the contractor and agree
And reduce it.
to do a reduced scope if everybody's in an agreement. But we have to either accept or reject without any changes. We can't do anything else at this point.
Understood, thank you.
Is that all you need? You're set on what
Does everybody
we
understand?
agreed on?
Yep, I just want to make sure everybody understands. Are there any other questions or need for clarification, Scott, Randy?
No, the numbers came pretty close. Since you put in the clocks, we took them out. So we have, the idea of what the cost is going to be. Pretty good on that.
It's not going to make much difference
No, oh,
in
no.
what we're dealing with.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right, and they've already scoped it out for us. I don't know when we've ever been over budget on anything. I think this is going to be a first. But it's the times.
Okay, Susan,
Do anything.
Just want to make sure, are you guys good?
Yeah, I'm good. There's one in here, when we do the epoxy terrazzo in the lobbies, which I think is a good thing to do, we had a deduct that we were using LVT, luxury vinyl tile. It was the more wood look tile. That was going to be in the commons area and the lobbies. That, in the end, it should have been broken down a little bit further. We may have to accept one of the other alternates to make sure we get the epoxy terrazzo, and it may end up that we have another credit to work with the contractor to work through.
All right, bring it on.
But we-
you have to do what you have to do.
Okay, so we'll make sure we're
But
set
we-
with all those details.
What we're saying is we want the terrazzo
Correct.
in the lobbies.
We'll make the other ones work to make that happen.
Okay, whatever else you have to do, you have to do. Okay.
And then, thank you, Dr. Lamont. So the one thing I want to let everyone know is that because we're having committee meetings tonight, and a lot of these items are on the agenda for tomorrow night, we will prepare the minutes tomorrow morning for this meeting and the finance and budget meeting, and then we'll have to put on, like we did last month, an addition to reapprove adding those to the agenda because it's less than 24 hours, but we think it's important to put on the minutes because, this is based on the discussion had this evening, that the vote will be taken. So I wanted to make you guys all aware of that, and we will send that out to everyone tomorrow as soon as we get those prepared, and then they'll be on the agenda for tomorrow evening to go through the minutes, okay?
Excellent. Good job,
Thank you so much. I
Yeah,
know
it's really good.
that's a lot of
Yeah, thank you.
information.
Yeah.
Scott. Thank you, Sue.
Okay.
Is there any other business? If not, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I'm ready to get out of here.
Opposed, same sign.
Finance and budget.
Motion carried.